to meet you. I've been a fan for a long time. I'm a gamer, so you know I've heard you in plenty of stuff. How is it going from doing like anime to movies and then circle back to animation? Like, how has that journey been? Like, you're an OG in voice acting, right? So how has that journey been?
You know, it's funny. I just realized earlier that I have been voice acting longer than Jack has been alive, which is what? I mean, man, when I started voice acting, I would have never, ever dreamed that I could play Lois Lane in Batman and Superman. I'm like, what? And alongside my husband, what? It's just, this project has been a blast. Yeah, I grew up with superheroes, so I don't know. How am I sitting here right now? I don't know. I don't know what's happening.
So, we already asked your husband, what's it like working with him?
It sucks. It's just terrible, every moment of it. No, it's awesome. We're just like jumping around, just so excited. And then the fact that Troy's playing Batman, like what? Troy's one of our best friends as well, so it's just stupid. This is yeah. And it's great because, you know, even though this is the pandemic and we all recorded separately, to have those people who are very, very close to me in those roles, I could hear them in my head. Even before they recorded, I knew what they were going to do. So,
right.
Yeah, it's great.
So did it ever feel like work, or was it just all play?
No, it's play.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a moment that would have been hard or unhappy. As
like a hardship, yeah.
No, it's a blast. Did you guys see the film yet?
No, yeah, I haven't seen it.
There's some really fun stuff. Travis and I watched it. Yeah. Travis and I watched it a couple nights ago, and there's this like Lois moment that Travis went, "Ooh!" Like, so it's just fun. It's a lot of fun.
So would you say playing Lois, of course you played so many different voices, you have like texture with each one of them. Would you say Lois is more connected with you at times? Of course you're playing alongside with your husband. And of course the story of actually like connecting a family element and teaching like your son and like raising your son, of course it could be very personal.
Yeah, 100%. You know, to come at it from the perspective of motherhood. I thought 10 years ago that I could play a mom, and I've played a mom and other things, but to have a son now brings a whole different experience to it, and it comes from a different place. And there is a line in the film where she looks at Clark and goes, "We did good." And yeah.
When it comes to the role of Lois Lane, obviously the penultimate role is played by Margot Kidder. How much of her performance influenced you on your portrayal?
I mean, she's my Lois, and she's always going to be in my brain as Lois. And I know that version of her influenced Jeremy a lot in the writing as well. So, you know, she's a firecracker, and she's capable. And so that was there, but I also was able to bring a lot of myself to it as well. You know, I always want to bring something new. You don't want to just lay down something that somebody else has already done.
So, Lois has always been described as the heart of Superman. And it's a very important role within the DC universe because, again, people always talk about how invulnerable Superman is, but it's the people that he loves that makes him vulnerable.
Yeah.
Do you feel that was portrayed well in this movie, and what was your approach to being Lois?
It's so funny, you know, the Man of Steel, and she can still tell him what to do. He's still scared of Lois. I think this movie shows another vulnerability for him, and seeing him as a father and her as a mother puts things into a different perspective for the two of them. There's a sweetness that Clark shows to Jon that I haven't seen in any other iteration of Superman, and it's really special.
But Okay.
You're asking good questions.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So gaming wise, like we never really got to see like different iterations of Lois. Would you love to see Lois like have some type of story arc video game?
What?
That would be awesome.
Oh my gosh, just like a Lois character in Injustice or something. Yeah, it'd be awesome. I don't know what she would do in a battle against Batman.
I mean,
but
she was fighting in Apocalypse against Harley
there you
Quinn.
go. That's true. She's tough. I don't know. She could pull out some tricks.
Oh,
Superior intellect, you know.
Yeah, right? She
Yeah.
can outthink anybody.
Yeah.
This kind of projects, are you asked to do Lois Lane, or are you asking people to play a character? When you're going to projects, are you asking for roles, or do they?
Oh, they usually would come to us to play them. Yeah, I'm sure I could ask if I could play things, but I don't know if people let me do it. I should give it a try though.
So, is there any time that you are refusing?
Oh yeah, surely there's been projects that I have not been able to do or didn't seem like the right fit. But this one specifically, I jumped at the chance. I was very, very happy when they approached.
Would you say because of this family focus that the movie stakes feel very high because it's a family at stake?
Yeah, I just think, God, and I can't wait for you guys to see it. The relationship that you see between Damian and Jon, like to see both of them grow within the movie is so important. Yes, family starts.
Yeah, it's
Laura's like, I don't want to say, but I do want to say.
I know.
yeah.
It's tough. It's so tough.
I was going to ask if you could give us some
Right after
spoilers.
this, right?
Are we leaving? Is this it?
I think
He's got one more.
Oh, we're done? Done. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
So, just to say, I got to see it for the first time ever, and you was amazing in it. I just want to say thank you. But how would you kind of translate from acting on camera to actually doing voice acting? Because I've heard from many who transition into voice acting that it's kind of tough. Would you say the same thing, or you have a different opinion?
I'd say it's so much easier. It is. You don't have to memorize your lines. That's the best part. You don't have to. I mean, if there's any challenge that's like, to point out, I guess it's that you don't have to use as much. There's no physicality involved. But I still do it. I still do the things like in the room. I'll be like, the character jumps off the thing. I'll be like, ow! I'll punch myself in the arm. I'll do all the things. But the best part is that you don't have to memorize your lines. But I feel like also with live action, it's a whole different beast. Like it's not. I wouldn't even really. Everything I do is theatrics for me. Whether it's
I can tell because your
music,
personality just goes through each one of your roles.
it's always. I'm unfortunately, but also in a good way. I'm kind of always characteristic. I'm always kind of an archetype or whatever. Like whether it's in music or it's in skateboarding or whatever I do, I'm always bringing something more a theatric to it. So. I don't know. Animation and live action, I think, are both extremely fun, but different. Yeah.
So what about the script or the character of Jonathan Kent attracted you to the project?
The word Superman and the word Batman and the word DC. I want to tell you guys a little secret. I never read the script, and I'll tell you why. I am a professional. I promise you that. But it's also I got offered this movie, and I was so floored with gratitude. I was over the moon, and I was like, I think so, yes. But they never sent a script. They just said, okay, Friday we'll do a recording session. So like the week passed and I did a recording session, but they only did my parts. Like we only recorded my parts. We didn't go through the parts that I wasn't in. So from this movie I just know the scenes that Jonathan Kent is in. So I'm really excited to see this movie today because I have no idea what to expect.
Was that like jarring for you, I guess? Because you never really had an experience like that before?
No, I'm actually more excited now because like I'm glad I don't really know. I mean I know the ending. I do. But I don't know. I'm really thrilled. Yeah. Jarred, sure. Yeah.
So were you a DC fan before you started all this?
I was just telling those guys over there. Yeah, I'm. it's seriously every day or whenever I'm at these conventions or I'm doing something for DC, like whether it's Shazam or Shazam 2 or whatever it is or this, it's kind of surreal. Like I'm trying not to like wake up from this crazy dream that I'm living, and I try to pinch myself all the time because it's like, wow, man, this is like it's trippy. It's seriously trippy because I grew up idolizing the Justice League. As soon as I popped out, man, my guy was Batman and Aquaman. Those are my two favorites, and loved Batman. I followed every Batman mythos and everything, so I love Batman. And so I grew up loving and idolizing the DCEU and the Justice League, and then to know that I get to make a contribution in any way or add to it or be involved in any capacity is like seriously makes my head want to explode. It's ridiculous. It's so crazy. So because I grew up, I mean, I'm a fan just like y'all, and so to be involved is seriously the craziest thing ever.
Do you read current comics? Like, do you keep up with current stuff?
If I'm working on a Shazam movie or something like that, I will. I'll read them every day. But I haven't read the newest Justice League or anything like that.
Okay.
But I know I should. I've been distracted.
Busy guy.
I guess so.
Haven't played Superboy. Why is Superboy important to the DC universe? This is a company that started off making characters for children. These are the first child superheroes: Superboy, Robin, the Teen Titans. Why is Superboy important?
Well, because Superboy's been around forever, but Superboy hasn't always been Superman's son. Superboy has been other things. So Superboy, being Jonathan Kent, I think was created in like 2014. Jim Lee was the illustrator, and I loved that stuff. By the way, I read that stuff too. And when Jonathan Kent came out, before that, it was his name wasn't Jonathan; it was something else. Like you know what I'm talking about? Connor Kent. Yeah, that's right. It was Connor Kent. And I knew that too, but Jonathan Kent is fairly new, and I think I'm the first person to ever voice him in an animated feature. So that, I mean, like, dude, like breaking ground, that's like big shoes to fill. But also, less pressure than if I had to compare myself to somebody else doing it before. So it's kind of like I can start fresh, and if I end up playing this character forever and they make more of these, then I'm over the moon.
So when you were reading the source material itself on the way in there, were there little things that when you're reading it for yourself, you're like, I want to put this in here because that's what I heard in my head as I'm reading it?
Oh yeah, oh totally. Well, I mean, there's it depends on honestly, it depends on the dynamic you have with the director, the relationship you have with the director, and luckily, Matt, like, we had a great repertoire where he let, I think, a lot of the actors. I was talking to the other cast members about how it was with him and the very brief sessions we would have. There was only 2, I think, and it was a very short, very long leash. He gave us a lot of free rein to express as we would, just given intuition. So it felt really good. It felt very free and liberating. Yeah.
So you mean like you got to improvise and stuff?
I improvised a bunch. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
I tend to do that a lot. I tend to get lost.
All right, you've been in Shazam, you know Jonathan Kent. Is there any characters you haven't played from the DC universe that you want to do?
I think you know the answer to this. Batman. I want to be Batman. I'm going to say this forever. If I'm not Indiana Jones or Batman by the time I die, I haven't lived. Sorry, I'm so ungrateful. No, I want to play Batman. I want to play Batman. I'm going to kill it if I play Batman. I promise you guys. I'm just so good. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Badass. How, I don't know how your personality is, but how did you tap into that to kind of balance it because you still want to have a friendship with Jonathan?
Sure.
How is that balance?
Well, I'm accustomed to playing the villain, so it wasn't my first rodeo of sort of a character that has a dark past but has a good heart as well. But it was really, really fun getting into the voice. I sort of obviously took from Batman and got into this kind of teenage, angsty, doesn't give a shit kind of attitude, But he definitely loves his dad, even though he comes from very dark means, raised by Talia al Ghul, obviously, and But I love that he wants to take the mantle of Robin, even though he has this different past, and wants to support his dad, you know. And yeah, it was a really fun character to play.
So when you prepare for a role like this, do you immerse yourself in the comics just to kind of like familiarize yourself with the character, or do you kind of take the script on its own merits?
Yeah, so I definitely started with the script, read the script a couple of times, started with the voice, and then I went into the origins of like where he grew up, how he grew up. You know, I thought maybe he was, you know, I didn't really know. I thought maybe he was raised by Bruce Wayne, but he obviously wasn't. And read a couple of the comics online, and sort of tried to get a handle of this kid. And what I found was different from what I kind of thought going into it. But it was really cool, and he's definitely a cool character to play. But and a little bit of pressure for sure. Like, it's a really big iconic character, and I wanted to do a good job and at least have a pretty good handle of his origins and how he came to be, and a little bit about some story arcs going into it. I kind of read online about some story arcs and stuff.
So Damian was a character who was created for a single story and was actually meant to die and never come back. The fans loved him, so he was brought back. Have you met any fans yet? How have been their reactions to you playing Damian?
Not yet. I think maybe once the film is released, maybe I will. Maybe today when we go into the big panel and watch the film. But I'm really excited to kind of carry the torch for a second. You know, it's an honor and a big responsibility. But I'm really happy with my performance, and I think it works really well. And yeah, because there's nothing worse than when you see it and you're like, oh, like, you know, I don't know, but it's from the first, because I had 2 sessions for the movie, and the first one, you're kind of going in and like guessing a little bit at it, you know, because you don't really like see the animation with the voice. But the second time I went in, I was like, oh my gosh, this totally is working. Like, it looks great, it sounds great, and then you have the confidence, you know what I mean? And then the second session, I'm like, oh yeah, like, I got this, you know. And it really does look amazing, and I'm really happy with the finished product.
Were you recording your part solo or with the other actors?
So me and Jack just met today, actually, yeah. So we recorded completely separately, but it was interesting because we had great chemistry, even though we weren't in the room together. I could just tell that we were going to be able to play really well together. So yeah, it was just me, and like I said, the second session, I got to kind of see it come together a little bit more and see the way that our lines were playing off of each other. And yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I'm really excited to see that.
Is it the kind of way to imagine yourself just working and trying to figure out what the other people are saying, or without even seeing the other people talking to you? How do you cope with that?
Yeah, it's kind of like I said, kind of a guessing game. But the second session, you do get to see it a little bit more together. So today's going to be awesome. I haven't seen the film yet. They did send me a cut, but I wanted to kind of wait. I figured we might be able to go to Comic-Con, and here we are. So today is going to be my first time seeing it.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what in the script appealed to you to play the character?
I think the first scene is definitely a grabber. You know what I mean? They're in the Batcave. He's meeting Jonathan for the first time. He's kind of like giving him shit, you know. It's because in the beginning, Jonathan, you know, doesn't have any powers, and he, you know, Damian's kind of joshing on him a little bit, and seeing that dynamic in the beginning is particularly grabbing, I think. But the whole script is fantastic, and it's a lot of fun. It's hilarious, and it looks amazing, and I know kids and adults are gonna love it. Yeah, my little 7-year-old nephew is actually coming in today, and it'll be really cool. He's never really seen me do what I do, so I think this will be a really cool first thing for him to like be a part of and come see what his he's gonna love it. So I'm excited. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you haven't gotten to see the movie at all, but from your previous roles that you've had, because even myself, when I see myself on camera, I'm like, I'm critiquing everything. Do you get in those moments when you like critique everything from your past roles and you're like, okay, next time I want to do this differently?
That's a good question. You know, I like to start pretty much with a blank slate. Obviously, just as in life, as humans, you know, we take lessons from every experience, you know? And I think there is definitely a little bit of, okay, that didn't work so well in the last project, or that did work well in the last project. And kind of, yeah, you take the experiences with you, you know, and that's kind of how you build a career. And what I've found is that, you know, work begets work and everything compounds on top of each other, and this was definitely the biggest voiceover job that I've done, and I've kind of been dabbling in it the past couple of years. And I was just saying a second ago that it's so liberating to do voiceover, because as an actor, when you're in front of the camera, even if you're like in character and you're like in it, there's still a little bit in the back of your head of like, how do I look right now, you know? And like being in the booth in the recording studio, it's like you're completely liberated by, okay, like it's not my face, it's not me, it's just the voice. And so I can really, I've found that I just love it, you know? So I would love to be able to continue to play David. And maybe some other voiceover stuff. You know?
So, as a voice actor, how do you measure success?
I think just the performance, you know, how it comes out, how it matches to the animation, you know. Like I said, I haven't done much animation, but this movie I'm really proud of, you know. Going to the second session, seeing my voice and the animation come together, I was like giddy, honestly. It was like, you know, I felt like a little kid, you know. It's like, wow, like, you know, it's such an iconic character, and I was like, that's me, you know, like just hearing my voice, you know, seeing it, and yeah, I think just the finished product and how it all works together, I'd measure it. Yeah. So yeah, I think we're done.
Any voice performance that you look to for inspiration, or
Boy,
just kind of?
I mean, I love Jerry O'Connell's stuff. I mean, for me, Christopher Reeve's print from the Richard Donner movies in the '80s was like the stalwart one. I've watched every single episode of Smallville.
Yeah.
I saw Tom Welling in the building earlier today. I was like, hey, you know. I mean, he and I are around the same age anyway, but you know, there's just to me, a very fatherly tone to Superman. You know, he's, you know, the DC Universe's version of, you know, Captain America. So, you know, to me, there's something to be seen from the best of us in that character. So I loved the opportunity to play a father, I think for the first time on film for him and Lois.
Is that an aspect of the script that appealed to you, being a father to Jonathan Kent?
100%. I mean, first they told us that, you know, my good friend Troy Baker was going to be Batman, so for him to be Batman, me to be Superman, playing our favorites, that was already special enough. We were in, sight unseen. But then they said it was Battle of the Super Sons, Jonathan Kent was going to be in it, Damian Wayne, their sons, and how their sons are going to come back and save them, even though that's, you know, not typically the way it goes. It's usually the parents trying to bail out the kids. So it was amazing in those scenes also to see the vulnerability of Superman, someone who has the world's responsibility on his shoulders, but then has to come down on a micro scale and just make sure that his own roof, his own house is in order too, and that they feel supported and listened to and heard and seen. And I think that was really special just as a dad of a son who's 4, and kind of putting that aspect of it into the performance, right? I mean, being a large guy myself, my son is very small and he thinks I can do anything, but there are some cases where dad can't do everything, and sometimes it's just about listening and being there for your son. And so that was very special for us.
I guess I'll go again.
Yeah.
So you hit on the vulnerability of Superman, because that is something everyone talks about. Oh, Superman's this impossible character; he can't be hurt. But as a father myself as well, like, you bring our kids into it, there's a vulnerability there that people who aren't parents don't understand. Is that an important aspect to bring through in the character?
Very much so. I mean, you kind of hit it right. A lot of people. I've been a Superman fan my entire life. I've got a 9.8 frame Death of Superman comic signed by Dan Jurgens in my room. Like he's my guy. But a lot of the critiques are like, oh, he's not relatable. He can do anything. He's invulnerable. There's nothing that strikes a chord there. But you put his son into the mix, right? Instantly he's vulnerable. I mean, that's where I heard somebody say this after our son had been born, that having a kid is like having your heart taken out of your chest, giving it legs, and it's running around on the floor, and all you can do is watch as it slams into things. And you're like, okay, I guess this is the ride now. And so, your walls and your protection come down. And I think that's so important, not just as an actor, but also as a father, and I think for Superman as well, to understand. I mean, he does a great job of taking care of the people in the world, right? But you also have to take care of your son, and it's not just about protecting from outward things; it's listening to the things that are happening inside as well. Yeah.
In recent years, we've been seeing a lot of portrayals of Superman as a father with the Lois and Superman series that's going on, as well as this movie and the Super Son series. Why do you think we're seeing so much of that in media, and why is it so important?
Yeah, it is a great question. I think anytime you establish that family dynamic, you add another layer to the character. We've seen the story of how he discovers his powers, who he is young in life, how he has to hold back against anger as he's bullied in high school, what it's like moving into the big city. We know those stories, and they're really fun to watch as they're retold. But seeing him, commit to Lois, establish a family, and have a son where, again, there are no rules, right? You can try your best, but it's all going out the window. One of the best parenting advice I ever got was keep your sense of humor, because it's all going to go wrong at some point. So I think, it's funny just being able to watch them, and relatable being able to watch them handle everything that comes with a son and the reintroduction of insecurities and through puberty and all those sorts of things. It's also one of the best quotes from the very first Superman movie, Marlon Brando saying, the son becomes the father and the father becomes the son. There's that cycle that's completed when you have a kid. So I think it's just an important layer for Superman, and also a great opportunity to watch a man that has everything in terms of abilities and expectations, come back to that starting point and start small.
What can you say about the film's sense of humor? I mean, you were just talking about the movie sense of humor.
I love the dry, the dry deliveries of Batman, right? Troy Baker just absolutely crushing, like the lack of compassion as he's talking to Damian, but also just the deadpan deliveries as he and Superman are going back and forth. It's just pitch perfect. Plus, Jack and Jack crushed it.
Yeah.
I mean, their chemistry is fantastic. They both have these fantastic, charismatic, energetic reads that I think play both well for Jonathan, but also just the devious humor of Damian. It's so good. I'm such a Damian Wayne fan. It's not even funny. So I hope he doesn't. I hope Bruce Wayne doesn't recuperate or rehabilitate Damian too fast.
Right.
That edge from Talia al Ghul it's a plus.
How has the dynamic between you and Laura, and then also Superman and Lois, having the same relationship, of course. How has that been? Do y'all ever critique each other?
Oh well, I don't critique her too much because I like being alive, but and she really doesn't critique me. But it always makes a difference hearing her performance, because we obviously know each other better than anyone. So I was interested to hear if there was a Lois Lane performance or a voice that she might be affecting or putting on in it. It really wasn't. It was Laura. And so when I heard her, delivering lines about our son, or even making cracks back at Clark, it changes the way I perform, right? The veneer comes down, any semblance of Superman or Clark Kent goes away, I get on the defensive, just like any husband would do to a wife that's, coming after him. And it was just great. It was also amazing hearing that soft side as we were both, clearly thinking of our own son. And, I think it was just, it was a real joy to be able to do that.
Okay, another one.
Yes.
So,
Tapping out.
That's it? All right.
Thank you, guys.
Now you're taking a movie where you're taking Damian and Jonathan Kent, not Bruce and Clark, and you're presenting it to a new audience. What was your approach to make sure that audiences are going to accept these versions of the characters?
I think mostly it was I know for me, when I got the script from Jeremy, I was already in love with Superman, and I was already in love with the script. So basically, that's my starting point, was to start from Superman and Batman, what we know of those two characters, and then discover what Jonathan and Damian had within themselves. So we actually got to grow with those characters while we're making the movie. So we got to see Jonathan go through, childhood, or not childhood, but teenage awkwardness, but then develop into superhero powers. And then you had Damian, who's in a world of superheroes. His dad is Batman, he already knows that, raised by Rachel Gould, and then him start to make a friendship. So you get to see him kind of entering into normal life. So it's kind of, each of them have like a reverse trajectory. And I think that interface of seeing the two of them, both those lives come together with our movie was kind of what made it really interesting to see I guess where the sparks would happen, where the pops would occur. I was watching that crossover between those characters. Yeah.
So with directing, like I mentioned earlier, the animation I love is different, especially from what we normally see from DC animated films. What inspired like the tone to have it animated that way, and also how do you direct in a way that something can be cartoony and can still give something serious at the same time?
Yeah, that was definitely Rick's passion. I think he really wanted to bring a CG, 2D kind of vibe to this movie, and it was something that I was super excited to work on. We worked before, he and I, on Lego movies doing CG, so we knew some of the ins and outs technically of how to do CG, but what's different about this movie was the whole rendering, the fact that how it was going to look, and that was where we really focused our energy. We focused on design to make sure that those designs were really strong, that they would come off looking like the comic book and looking like the cartoon that we wanted it to be. And really, Rick just did an amazing job with our design because he focused on that. For me, I was focusing on just making sure the story was told, accurately and emotionally. And then sometimes we would have to kind of look at things and make sure that things did not technically, get too out of hand. But generally speaking, design is where we focus a lot of that energy. 'Cause that's the last thing you guys see. Is you don't see all the mechanics of like layout and storyboards and things. You see those final designs. So that's where we focused.
In the source material, the comics, they end up having the characters aged up. So we really don't get to see a relationship between Damian and Jon. However, with this, we're able to see a bit more of a relationship. Would we be seeing more the super powers books or super kids?
Or super children, shall we say? I certainly hope so. I had a ball working on this movie. I really fell in love with these characters. I love Damian and Jonathan. I love seeing them together as a team, and so it's something that I would immediately hop on another Super Sons if we were going to plan one, if we wanted to make one. It would be no hesitation at all. You'd see me on it. So only time will tell. If people respond really well to this movie, hopefully it'll be something that the executives start pushing for some kind of sequel or some kind of continuation.
What is directing an animated movie versus a live action? What are some of the major differences that people maybe don't understand when you approach a project like this?
I haven't directed live action myself, but it's what I do know of it is that it's with animation we're able to really plan things a lot more. We can really storyboard it out, really finesse it, and you'd be amazed at actually the kind of things that we can change even when the movie comes back. There's aspects that we can really kind of adapt and move around because it's really just an image in the computer that we can manipulate. But I would say probably for us it's we're kind of spoiled by that. I don't know how much live action gets that opportunity because I think that nowadays with After Effects and CGI and things, they could probably do that, but I unfortunately wouldn't know.
We noticed that in the last years, DC animated movies are quite short, limited to 1 hour, 10 minutes, 20. Are you fighting in some ways to get movies to be longer, or do you just
They pretty much tell us that we have a window of time that we can aim for, and then there's also just a window of time of how much the budget will allow us to make the movie. So that's pretty much told beforehand. So what we end up doing is almost always when we put these things together, it's a whole lot longer than it needs to be, and so we have to whittle it down. And I'll tell you honestly, nobody wants to do that. You'll sit there and look at it and you're like, no, we worked so hard. We made this just the way we want it. We don't want to touch anything. And then we cry and we wipe our tears away and then we realize we have to. And then when we do that, we find actually that the movie ends up becoming a little stronger because you're getting much more to the point. You're getting much more direct. And you end up kind of cutting away the dead weight. And sometimes refining your story into something a little more tighter. So if I had the opportunity, I'd probably make a 3-hour movie. They'll never let me, and it's probably for the best.
That's when we get the director's cuts.
Yeah, exactly.
Are there any technical challenges when you are going to CG compared to traditional animation in terms of frame or angle you can do?
There's a lot of strange things that you wouldn't consider with CG. It's always having to render in a computer, so sometimes you have to limit how much stuff you can put in it. So if you had like a character with an autumn or something and there's leaves falling down, you'd have to CG animate each of those leaves, and that would be a rendering. So that sometimes ends up being something that, don't approach that. And on the other hand, with 2D, you can draw whatever you want. But then with 2D, your camera is kind of locked in space because you can't really move it as much outside of your hand. Where in CG, you can actually have the camera pan up and go through things, which is super, exciting to work with. So I myself like working in CG, but I also love 2D for the beauty that brings too. So
Would you say you have a preference between the two?
I'd have to say probably CG, if only because I feel like we get a little bit more control. But that's also because I don't have the kind of experience that some people I know have with 2D, and there are people who know how to operate 2D so well, they're just masters at it, that I still need to learn that craft.
Right.
I hope to. That'll be the next thing, I think.
As the director of this project, what do you hope people take away from the movie besides being entertained?
Overall, I'd have to say that this world feels like a lot of people are becoming a lot more divisive and a lot more separated. And I really hope that this movie inspires the idea of trying to understand each other, trying to work together as a team despite differences. I think that was something that Jonathan really did, and I think it's something that I hope people will kind of get away from, the idea that maybe the person on the opposite side from you might be very different from you, but if you spend a little bit of time with them as a person, you might discover the real person underneath, and you end up gaining a friend in the process. So I hope it's not too corny, but I honestly hope that would be something people would get.
Did you watch any anime shows or animation movies to get inspirations from?
Me? Yeah, jeez, gosh. My whole childhood, I think it was like, I grew up watching Thundercats on TV, and the opening credits still get me excited when I watch that. I also grew up watching the Super Friends, the Hanna-Barbera show, so that was great. I actually met some of the people by working in the industry that worked on that, which was fantastic. It's interesting is it's not so much a particular individual film that will inspire me, but more how that film made me feel when I was a kid, that I feel like is most important. Because sometimes you revisit things when you're older and it's like, oh, that doesn't hold up quite the same. But I'll still remember how it made me feel, and that was probably the most important thing that I try to remember when making something. I think I gotta go.
Good to meet you.